All right. Welcome back to the Frith Guild Podcast. I'm your host, Eric.
And I'm co-host Scott.
And today we'll be diving into chapters 56 through 60 of World Serpent Arcanist by Shami Stovall. And for those that are in the United States, I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, as tomorrow, this is airing on November 27th. Tomorrow, Thursday, the 28th, is Thanksgiving. So everybody that's in the United States, I want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. Everybody else around the world, I wish you could join us in the festivities of Thanksgiving. And with that, we'll get into the final 5 chapters of this book. We've already had a roller coaster. We have Roshan and the World Tree and all that. Now we got to deal with Chandra. So let's get into chapter 56, which is a mistake made right. Okay, so Chandra basically has complete and total advantage of the whole arena because everything is covered in blood by this point. Crimthrand has been bleeding all over the place and is dead. Roshan has been bleeding all over the place and is dead. Thank you, Aviana, for taking care of Crimthrand and getting rid of, or Roshan at least, and getting taken care of that. Luther does tell Volke that he's tried to warn Mathis the night that he had died, and that Luther cannot lose another Arcanist, and he will be there for him this time. Luther is very, very vehemently and adamantly trying to convince Volke of retreating at this point because he does not see a way to win. And Volke decides that he cannot falter and that he modeled his own ethos after the Vanguard, after the stars in the sky, and it's going to be completely and utterly unwavering. And looking back to see how Volke achieved true form with his nightmare with Luther previously back in Plague Arcanist, if Volke didn't have a true form nightmare already, he would have again.
It is a moment.
Because, like, hairs are standing up. Even me just talking about it right now, hairs are standing up all over me, like just goosebumps. Luther, and a lot of this is going to be about Luther. He basically is giving Volke a monologue and telling Volke that he needs to go and write his own legends, stop living in the shadows of the greats like Ruma or Zelfrey or Gravekeeper William and all these other Arcanists that Volke has modeled himself after. And Volke has more than proved his character over and over and over again. Volke has realized that he's going to have to sacrifice himself in order to hopefully get Riker to the World Serpent with the little remaining strength that he has left. Volke has accepted his fate. He accepted that his mission is to get Riker to the World Serpent. And I'm going to do a few Luther quotes here. He says, "My Arcanist, fighting by your side gave my life new meaning, and by protecting you in your moment of need will be my greatest and most cherished privilege. I will make this right. I won't repeat my past failings." At this, Luther disengages with Volke, leaving his cape on Volke, and goes and kills Chandra and Demise. Stabs them while they're still together, so live and die together. And instant kill for, perfect shot with them, the two of them. And Luther turns around and says, "My Arcanist, now you can finish what we started. And thank you for allowing me to serve by your side as you grew into the knight who stands before me today."
It doesn't seem real. Like it felt fake.
I legitimately was in tears when I read this.
Like I was like, was this like an outtake? Where's the real story?
Right, like you're tricking me here. This isn't happening.
Yeah, and I was going back and forth between this thought of like that could not have actually happened. Like that did not happen. And my second thought is like, wait, we only got true form for one book. Like there were so many, like he had wings, he had fins. Like what else did he have true form that we like didn't get to see?
Right, like there's so many things, and like I thought Livia's death was hard. Holy crap!
Much harder.
Way harder. Volke, I don't know how Volke does this, but he goes like straight beast mode, like realizes he has to carry Riker and Aviana to the door and continue on with their quest.
And that brings us to chapter 57, the World Serpent. So they enter into this ornate room. There's star shards everywhere. Moss, mother of shapeshifters, ends up coming out of the pocket. They have now learned to press the runestone to the door.
The Jade Claw has the inscription on the. There's a really good thing. They didn't just throw it away or toss it to the side.
We don't need this anymore. We're already in.
Hey, ounces turn into pounds, pounds turns into pain, okay?
Yes. The room is covered in nature. Volke places Eviana into this magical pool, and out rises this serpent, massive serpent. Volke offers for Riker to bond, and the serpent refers to them as the children of Battlestar, so something to kind of keep in the back of our minds as we go forward, and lets them know that it is time for a new warlord, but he's not going to bond with Riker. He's willing to bond with Volke, but not Riker. He says that Riker lacks the conviction, and the only people that would have been able to bond with him would have been Orwin, who he refers to as a child of Luvi, and Volke. Volke continues to push for Riker. He's in the mindset of, our little fortune teller said it had to be Riker. He's got to be the one. And we then find out that the children didn't actually say it was Riker, and some of Riker's confusion was because they said it was a child of Arona.
At this point, it's just like, wait a minute. No, don't you dare.
Volke's doing some math, and he's like, wait, my mom's name was Arona. We're brothers. So he then finds out that the prophecy was really referring to him, and he does agree to bond with Terrakana.
Chapter 58, God Arcanist. And the only thing I could think of was in this scene was, Volke, don't fuck this up. Bond with the damn World Serpent. You're obviously doing the thing that you should be doing by declining power. But come on, man. Like, it's a God Arcanist.
It is. And the fortune teller said it was you.
Riker still sitting there, kind of just bleeding out and not living. And Moss kind of comes out of his pocket and was like, oh, hey, like, you saved me, so I will save him in return. And that she's declared that Volke's self-sacrifice is the ultimate completion of her trial of worth. I didn't quite, like, I pondered that for quite a while. Like, is that her actual trial of worth, or did she just say that as like a okay?
It felt like an okay. It felt like I kind of promised you I would help, and like if I bond with him, it helps you. So like we're even now, right? Like
once Riker bonds with Moss, and Volke's watching very intently because this is not a normal creature. This is a child of a god creature. And notices that Riker has a 9-pointed star, so he gets 2 extra points to that star. So that's got to be at least a +5 charisma and like all stats, I guess. And the mark itself is absolutely freaking terrifying, and it is described as a blob with eyes all over. And this is one of those ones that I actually did an Arcanist Mark IV and had worked with Shami very closely with on getting it, as she would prefer it. And we kind of settled, and we'll see if Dan, I'll send it to Dan, have him see if he can put it up here. But it is very, as she said, Cthulhu-esque. So it is very, I don't want to say disturbing, but yeah. Volke goes to bond with Terrakana as he knows how to by reaching his hand out. And Terrakana's like, okay, like, I'm going to stick my nose out so you can touch it. And then he kind of is like, I'm fucking with you. You got to get on my back because we got to go up to the sun so that we can bond, so that the sun can witness this. I love that little bit of a, like, joke's on you.
I'm too good for that.
I appreciate the little bit of laughter after the absolute heart wrenching scene of Luther. So Shami, you just stop playing with my emotions like this. Terracotta takes him up to the sky and basically is like, "Hey, look, when the Apoc Dragon comes to usher us into oblivion, it will be us who joins him, and basically, when I die, you die."
Pretty scary when you think about it.
Yeah. Well, I was just saying, like, I don't think this was a very well written contract here.
There's a lot of wiggle room.
Like, he's under duress. He clearly and not trying to go lawyer on this.
He is in no shape to sign a contract. This has not been reviewed.
He hasn't had a chance to have his lawyers look at their lawyers' contract. Nonetheless, Volke bonds with Terracotta, and we see a similar beam of light basically going straight up into the clouds, but it was different colored than what we've seen previously. So this kind of concludes that whatever the rose-colored pillar that we saw earlier obviously had to have been the Soul Forge bonding with somebody. I'm not going to say who. We'll find out. But Volke also ensures that everybody was, in fact, safe because, Devlin, Zelfrey, Ilya all get kind of nom-nommed by the tree. So, and just as we're celebrating this awesome bonding ceremony, we find out that Akiva is down fighting with the guild.
And that does bring us to chapter 59, the Edge of War. So Terracotta dives underwater. The Great Basilisk Near is on the tree roots. There's other Blackthorn ships that are attacking. Everyone is pretty much just staring at the World Serpent when it's absolutely massive and the only god creature any of them have ever seen. He is able to knock Nair into the water. Nair latches onto his tail. Volke strikes out with his sword, gets him to let go, and then, unfortunately, Reese comes in and teleports away to save the Great Basilisk. The World Serpent tree is also helping out. There's vines latching out from the nest, trying to protect its own. They chase Akiva, wrap him out, but he is unfortunately empowered by his aura, so he's a little too strong. He's able to slice at Terracotta.
And then he throws his sword at Volke. Wonder where he learned that one from.
Reese pays attention. And then, unfortunately for us as well, Reese comes back and saves him. Eventide does admit that they knew about some of the general wording in the Civil Arcanist fortune, but they didn't want to tell Volke because they didn't want to force his hand into anything or make him change his decision because he would decide that, Luther would have to die for him to bond.
Do you think he would have been able to go into that decision knowing that Luther is going to have to die? Like, there's absolutely no way. Like, I know Volke would have done everything the same way. He would have. I think he would have tried to find a different way to kill Chandra and Demise without Luther dying, but I don't think he could have gone in front of Terracotta and been like, "Sorry, bro, like, gotta bond with the World Serpent."
Yeah, it's a very tough one. The other piece of information that we find out, and this one is actually really good to know, is that in all likelihood, the Autarch made promises to countries based on the fact that they would become the World Serpent Arcanist, who's known to be able to change terrain. So there's a lot of agreements that are probably ruined, and going to throw a few extra wrenches into that plan as well. Eventide does also admit that they did suspect that pillar was somebody else bonding with another God Arcanist, and does offer, if Volke is willing to stay into the guild with them.
Volke is very adamant about staying. So kudos to you, Volke.
Know your real ones, your day ones.
Yeah, hey, they the OG. You gotta keep with the homies. I'm sorry. Sorry, everybody. I'm so sorry. With that, we bring into chapter 60, the final chapter in this book. titled Much Needed Rest. Volke goes into the infirmary. Adelgis is in there and is actually really thrown off that Volke walked up in there because Adelgis can't hear Volke's thoughts anymore. I imagine that of all of the people that Adelgis can't hear his thoughts on, I think that Volke is probably the one that who would probably be the most upset about.
Who's the one he actually liked listening to? He's like, you had nice thoughts.
Right. Like you were a nice person. You had good thoughts. On the plus side, Adelgis is able to continue to communicate with Volke telepathically. Volke just has to verbalize his response now. Volke goes and gives everybody that was eaten by the World Tree a hug. He shows Ilya the top of his new mark. He doesn't like flash her because Volke's chest is where his mark is now at. And it goes up, around, and behind, and then like down his hip. Doesn't go anywhere past his hip.
So if you do want an equivalent tattoo, fear not.
Right. I imagine Karna's probably going to be upset that she can't continue to keep looking to where it would be. Everybody is wearing bandanas around their neck, and I didn't quite understand why everybody was wearing bandanas around their neck.
I got nothing on this one.
I remember reading this and being like, is there a significance? So if anybody is aware of a significance of wearing a bandana around their neck, Shami would like to enlighten us. Riker and Volke are in the dark. We're both in the dark about being brothers. And once Volke realizes it, he kind of like, oh, like that's why he's got the same disheveled hair as me, and we're about the same height, and we have the same skin tone, and all of the other things that line up perfectly. So Riker makes a comment about wanting to have Volke meet their mother, and Volke is like, well, you can meet our father too. Seems how he's just over here.
This felt very Parent Trappy to me. Like you get to meet my father and I get to meet your mother.
And maybe get them together again. Also very curious as to why Jose didn't make a comment about this previously, but we also really don't see him ever in this book. So Volke tries to meet up with him, doesn't get a chance. I imagine that's probably why, and he's probably like, I just found my one son. So let's try to patch things up one at a time here. Eviana does make sure that she gives Volke Luther's cape back, and mentioning that they should definitely make this into a trinket. Volke is like, absolutely not. We're going to make this into an artifact if we're going to do anything with this, because I'm not going to let this decay dust destroy the last bit of what Luther is left.
And they have like 1 million star shards now, so you might as well.
Right. Just go back into that cave and get some star shards. Like, you've got a master artificer. Like, no reason why you can't.
And imbue it with World Serpent magic. It's going to be so cool.
Right? And I mean, imagine wearing that thing as a cloak all the time. I don't even care if it couldn't turn into wings and fins and other things, but like, how badass of a cloak would that be?
All the stars and everything would be amazing.
This is where we see that Eviana is talking with Volke, and we end the book with her basically still explaining that she wants Volke to continue to mentor her, even though he is no longer bonded to a nightmare. Book close on that. That is the end of book 5 in Shami's series. And it's sad that I have to keep thinking really hard about how many books we are, and that we're book 5. With that, we'll get into this week's bestiary section, and we're going to go over the World Serpent.
Whoa.
So as we have just met Terrakanna, he is a very massive snake. He's going to eventually grow into a thousands of feet long snake. And he's going to be he's honestly like as big as a fully grown Leviathan at this point as being a hatchling. So just to kind of give a little bit of concept of how large he's going to be. He has a square python-like face. He's got a forked tongue that has runes all over it. He's got a red and blue eye, and he has a crystal mane. I love this. and his whole body is basically, to include his scales, are covered in runes. We see with his trial of worth that we just went through to get through the world tree, along with finding the jade dragon claw, and then touching it against the doors. With the reproduction of this tier 5 creature only turning of an age, and that's a very loose term, but the plague is going to be considered one of those. It is able to evoke 2 different things, as is all of the god creatures. They're able to evoke, they have 2 sides of their magic for evocation, manipulation, and augmentation. They have a creation and a destruction. With the World Serpent, they have a vegetation creation, so they're to create or evoke vines, trees, ferns, all of the plants, that kind of thing. And with their destruction magic, they're able to produce magma. With manipulation, and this is something that we'll see a lot more in World Serpent or Warlord Arcanist in the book 6, that they are able to create land, or basically they're able to manipulate it, so they're able to make the terrain as they see fit. This is why the Autarch was so adamant about getting the World Serpent and bonding with it, because he had several alliances lined up just so that they could rearrange the landscape around. For the destruction, he is able to manipulate oceans, so water and that's such. For the augmentation, for the creation, is wildlife, and they can create nodes of magic that will spawn rare mystical creatures that are in tune with nature. And with the destruction side of it, they have red of tooth and claw, and they can create land that spawn rare man-eating mystical creatures with a bloodlust unlike any other. Another thing that we're going to see later on, we want to talk about, is the fact that once they basically use the creation or destruction enough on one or the other for any of those 3 magics, it basically locks them into one or the other, and they can't keep using both at all times. Their aura is also the same thing, creation, destruction. I actually think we'll wait for the aura to discuss that more in depth once we get into Warlord. It does get explained a little bit later on, so we'll wait on that for right now. The amazing innate abilities of the World Serpent, and this is something that I loved a lot, was that they are immune to heat, magical corruption, so they're immune to the plague again. So Volke's in the clear, man. He didn't.
He don't need no Kepra.
No, he good. He's immune to mind control abilities. He can breathe underwater, because technically he doesn't even need to breathe, actually. Like, it's just a function at this point. So he is Edward Cullens.
He pretty much is. Does he sparkle?
I bet.
All those gemstones?
Does.
Yeah, all those runes.
He has very rapidly increased regeneration that would probably put Zaxxas to shame, and he is also immune to venoms. So pretty much there isn't a lot that can do damage to him anymore. Now, World Serpent and all of the other god creatures are able to make true forms. So this is something that we may or may not see later on down the road. We'll briefly go over that. And the true form for the World Serpent is a Gaius. So they have to kill at least one other god creature, and then they have to be the last man standing out of all of the other God Arcanists. So he has to be the final god in the order to for his Eldrin to transform. That's a pretty intense, pretty tall stack of order there for that. If we achieve this, basically we'll be able to merge into the ground, like burrow into the ground. And sorry, I haven't read this before, and I'm just like absolutely blown the frick away. So if it achieves its true form, it is able to burrow into the ground and then emerge from the crust of the world, half of its body above, half of its body in the mystical depths of the abyssal hells. And like this, the World Serpent will triple in size. Its eyes will become black and speckled with stars like the night sky, and grows crystal spines all down its body. And it can tunnel into the ground and emerge anywhere on Varden. Its true form ability is Ouroboros. The basically becomes a gateway between the living realm and the abyssal hells, and can draw power from lost souls to empower itself. And as long as the World Serpent has access to lost souls and its God Arcanist cannot die. Shami's real world inspiration from this is from the Norse mythology, the Jormungandr and the Midgard serpent. It is said that when the Jormungandr awakens, the Ragnarok, known as the final battle, will commence. Because of this, the World Serpent is the first of the 12 god creatures to spawn.
All right, the second one that we are going to cover today is the Stone Golem. So these, if you've ever played like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, there's a few of them that look very, very similar. So these are a tier 3, and we do not know their reproduction.
This must have not been updated.
It wasn't. I swear we had like an aura in the bestiary, but I'm not seeing it. Because this seems like what we would have had before. I can see if it's in the actual bestiary.
I was like, wait a minute. They have a really cool reproduction. And
all right, I got it in the book, so I'm just going to go off the book. So they are mystical creatures made out of rocks held together by magic. So if you've ever played like Tears of the Kingdom, they have some golems there that you can fight. They do look very similar to that. They are usually made out of a type of stone, but do occasionally have threads of metal running through them. And they do take on a very humanoid shape. So picture a bunch of rocks stacked up that look like a human. To bond with one, you have to go through a test of resilience. So this often means that you are carrying something, either a heavy object or going long periods of time without eating. They are tier 3. And they do reproduce through a fable. So whenever a well-loved doll is discarded near a pile or formation of a specific mineral type, the doll must be human-shaped, and it must be adored by someone for at least 10 years before being abandoned. So very, very specific. They are able to evoke rocks and dust. This is a very slow evocation, though, so it does take a while for the process to build up. And the manipulation is stone, so it is the same stone they are made of. So a sandstone golem is able to manipulate sandstone, a marble golem manipulates marble, and so on. They do augment strength, so with themselves or with others, they increase strength and durability, and this can really turn somebody essentially into a superhero. Their aura is the quake, so the ground rumbles, shaking harder and harder until a full-blown earthquake shakes the area. This will bring down buildings, trees, boulders. This does not, however, affect the golem or the arcanist, and they can walk around as if the ground wasn't moving. For innate abilities, they do not need to eat, sleep, breathe, any of the usual requirements to living. And they can stone step through their type of stone. So similar to how Volke can shadow step, they can stone step. So not quite as common, but still pretty cool. And they do have a tremor sense, so they are able to feel when people are moving around on the ground near them. Their true form is virtue-based, so they have to embody the ideals of true love. And this happens through selfless adoration of another person and attempting to fill their life with good times and wonder. And with that true form, they do gain a stone face, elongated fingers, more defined feet, and they have glittering veins of metal running throughout their body. They also gain the ability of terrain distortion, so they can change any type of dirt, stone, or material within kind of a 100-foot radius of them. And this material does remain that formation until they leave the area. In world, they are seen as protectors and gentle giants, so there are a lot of traditions based around them. with specifically having those dolls that are loved for 10 years being thrown away to essentially spawn these golems as often as they can, which is pretty cool. They figured out what the requirement is, and they're just going on and meeting it.
You could say they're mining.
they are mining golems. And they are based off of clay golems from Jewish folklore. So the golems in the myths, these are often given life to be a servant for the masters. And the stone golems in Frith Chronicles are based off of that.
All right. And with that, again, we end the last chapters of World Serpent Arcanist. Next week, during our break between books, we are going to be going over Demon Card Enforcer by John Stovall, Shami's husband. By the way, if you guys didn't know, his second book has just recently came out. Actually came out yesterday. If you're listening to the day that this was dropped on November 27th, his book released November 26th. And Christmas is right around the corner, so this would be a great idea if you guys like books and literary RPG. With that, we're going to catch you guys next week.
Scott and I want to thank everyone for listening today. We post a new episode every Wednesday morning at 11 Eastern, 10 Central, and 8 Pacific Standard Time. We are on all podcasting platforms and are also on YouTube as well for video. After the additional episode airs, we post chapter-by-chapter videos every day in a smaller, easier-to-digest format. We do want to give a special shout-out to the final member of our team, Dan Mackison, one of the admins for the Frith Chronicles Wiki, link listed below, and doing his best to keep everything running smoothly behind the scenes. If you want to reach out to us, you could email us at frithguildpod@gmail.com or on Facebook or any other social media by searching for Frith Guild Podcast. Just to remind everybody, we have links to everything in the description below on both the podcast and YouTube. Scott, do you have anything else you want to add this week?
On book 6.
Yay! All right. See you guys next week. Scott, did you want to kick us off on the World Serpent?
I figured you were going to take it, so.
Oh, okay.
I know you want your little sneaky
like
snack.
Is he a nope rope or a danger noodle?
He's a danger noodle for sure.